Hello. Thank you for joining me today as we explore the different functions and features of Google Meet. All right. So what you're going to notice on your screen right now is that we're not actually at Google Meet. We are at Infinite Campus. Okay, the reason we're starting at Infinite Campus is because this is the main home base or the launch pad that students need to use to be able to access their School District of Philadelphia digital learning resources. All right, once we're here at Infinite Campus, we've clicked on our message center, which we can see right here, and we see in front of us the student launchpad. So this is where we would go to access textbooks and other learning resources from our video and other learning resources. For our video today, however, we're going to scroll down to Google G Suite for Education. So I'm going to use two fingers on my keypad and I'm going to scroll down to G Suite for Education. Okay, so remember that normally for class, students would go to Google Classroom and they would click on the link in their classroom that would take them to Google Meet so that they could meet with their teachers and the other participants in class. Today what we're going to do is we're actually going to click on Meet itself because our teacher has shared with us a nickname that we're going to use to join her class. So we're going to click Meet. And when the screen comes up, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put that code that the teacher gave us. Okay, and the teacher made her nickname easy for us to remember because it's actually just her name. So we're going to click Use a Meeting Code, and we're going to type in her name. Okay, then we'll click Continue. All right, so we're going to go ahead and give these things permission. And we're going to turn off this camera and the microphone. All right, so we know we're in the right place because it says Mrs. Barton and it says that our teacher is in the call. So we know she's there waiting for us in our classroom, ready for us to work together to do some learning. So we'll click Join Now. All right, so this is what a Google Meet will look like for the students. Okay, one thing that will be a little bit different though for your student when they first join a Google Meet is that there will be other participants and their pictures will show up over here on the side. Because there's no participants in this Meet with us today, we don't really see any of that kind of information. All right, so let's start doing our tour of Google Meet. So we're going to start up here in the top right corner. And we see this picture that looks like a cartoon image. This is a picture that the student has that a student can change. And so if the picture has not been changed, then what we'll see is just a solid circle with a solid color in there and just the first letter of their first name. All right, next to there we have the time. Okay, and then we have this button, which is the chat button. All right, during class, there may be times where the teacher asks the students to answer a question in the chat instead of everybody coming off mic and trying to talk at once, or everybody turning on their mics and trying to talk at once. All right, sometimes it's just easier to ask the question, have the students put the answer in the chat. That way it doesn't get loud and noisy with a lot of people always trying to talk at the same time. Okay, so I'm going to click on this chat icon. All right, and so down here at the bottom, we see our flashing line, and this is where we're going to go to put in our information that we want to say in our chat. Okay, so I'm going to type a message to the rest of the class. And then after I've typed what I want to say, I'm going to click this little arrow right here. And that is what shares that message. Everybody that's in the class can see what I've typed and what I've put up here. Okay, so an important thing to know is that once we click that arrow and the text comes up here, it cannot be changed and it cannot be taken back. Okay, so that's good information to have, just so we know, once we put it there, it cannot go away. All right, so the next thing that I'm going to point out is our People tab, which is right here. Okay, when we click here, a student can see all of the different participants that are in class. For us today, there's really just two participants, our student and the teacher. But if there were more participants, they would show up as a list down the side of the screen. Okay, so right now, one of the important pieces that I want to make sure I highlight in this in this People tab is the pinning. Okay, so the way Google Meet works is that whoever's speaking is who is in the center of the screen. And so what we want to do is we want to fix that so that the teacher always stays in the center. And the way to do that is to click on this arrow and to click on this pin icon right here. Okay, so by clicking on that pin icon, that means that my teacher is always going to stay in the center of my screen. All right, notice that when I clicked it, the icon turned turquoise or blue or green. Okay, now to unpin, I can either click here on the picture or I can click over here and click unpin. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to do, I'm going to click our X here. So we've looked at our image that tells us it's us. Okay, you know, if you're not signed in with your school district of Philadelphia credentials, you wouldn't be able to get into this Google Meet in the first place. So we know we're doing the right thing because we're here and we're interacting with our classmates. Next thing over is our time. Then we have our chat box, and then we have our People tab. Okay, so now we're going to look down here at the bottom of the screen. Okay, and so we can see like the room information. This is the nickname right down here. Okay, and the next button over is how the students can turn on and off their microphones. So a lot of teachers will have a policy that says, please have your microphones turned off before you join class. So if that happens, the students will come into class with both of these options turned off. And then if they want to participate in class, the teacher asks them a question specifically, and they need to answer the teacher, then they would click that button. So they would click here, the button would turn white, and the microphone would be on. And then once they're done answering the teacher, they would click it again, the button would turn red, and the microphone is turned off. All right, the other picture that I want to point out is this one right here. This is our camera icon. Same idea. When it's red, it's turned off. And to turn on the camera, we would click it, it would turn white. And then once the camera is on, the teacher and the rest of the students can see what's going on in class, or can see all of the different participants. Okay, sometimes the teacher might ask the students to turn their cameras on if they're trying to help them troubleshoot, or if they want to see that, just to check their faces and look in and make sure that everything is good and that they're okay. Alrighty, so the next thing we want to look at is this one right here in the middle. This looks like an old-time handset from an older version of a phone before we had cell phones. And this is the button that we would press to hang up when we're done with our meet and when we're done with our learning for the day. All right, so we're going to come across the bottom here a little bit more, and we're going to look at our Captions button. So this button right here is where we would press to turn on the captions. This is also a button we would use to change the language of those captions if we need to do that. Okay, so this is an important piece because some of our families and some of our students need to be able to see those captions, and the captions will run across the bottom of the screen in real time. So I've turned on my captions, and we'll see what happens here, and if they'll start popping across. They may not. Okay, and so this is, there's actually another video that will explain more in depth how to get the captions working and how to change the language for them. So I'm going to turn those back off right now. Okay, so the next button over is for Present Now. Okay, so presenting is a pretty straightforward process. There may be teachers that ask their students to present their screens to maybe help them troubleshoot or problem solve something that they cannot get to work on their computers or their Chromebooks, or to show work for the class. Okay, and so that button is right here, Present Now. Okay, and so for the students, they would click on this button and these are some of the options. This Present Now button is also the topic for another video because it's a little more in depth than that. So if you are interested in that, there's a video for turning on captions, and there's also a video for presenting now. Okay, so the last piece that I want to point out tonight is the 3 dots that are here. Okay, so under here, there's some different options that are available. Probably the only one that will be important for students is where they can change the layout. All right, so we're going to click on Change Layout. And once we click on Change Layout, we can see the different options that the students have for their screen. All right, so one of the options is to have this spotlight, which is here. So whoever is speaking will be the entire part of the screen. Okay, another option is this sidebar option, and this shows where, like, if it's the teacher that's speaking, then they'll be here on the screen, and if it's this, and all of these boxes will be the students. Okay, another option is this tiled option. And with this one, the teacher would be in one of the boxes and the other students in the class would be in the other boxes. Okay, so if a student changes their layout, they are only affecting what they see. So they don't have to worry about, if they change something here, is that going to affect like the teacher or some other students in class? It changes nothing on anybody else's computer. It only changes what the student is looking at. Okay, so these are some different options here. This spotlight is another way that if the student is having trouble seeing what the teacher is sharing, then clicking this spotlight layout may help with that. All right, so I'm going to close this and I'm going to quickly look at the other options that are here. Full screen, what full screen will do is it will cause the top piece to disappear. So I'm going to click that now. So you'll notice all of my controls have gone away. Okay, and that could be kind of hard, but for the kids, because now all of a sudden their tabs and things are gone. To get those back, we're just going to click Escape, and they come right back. So click the ESC, the Escape button, in the top left corner of the keyboard. All right, so that is probably it for the 3 buttons here. Change layout is going to be the most important. There is another place here to turn on captions if they're needed. Okay, the settings is just to get to the audio and video settings. So when it first asked for a student to allow the sound or the camera, if they didn't do that, then this is a place where they can, or if they're having some kind of trouble seeing or hearing people, this is the place where they can go to fix that. Okay, the rest of this information isn't super helpful for students, so we're just going to move on. All right, so that is our video about the functions and features that can be found within Google Meet. Okay, remember how we got here was we went to Infinite Campus. Most of the time, students will get to Google Meet by going to Google Classroom and clicking on a link from Google Classroom. Okay, for our purposes in this video, we had a nickname that a teacher shared with us, so we were able to click on the Google Meet icon, type in that nickname, and join that teacher for class. Okay, thank you very much for joining me this evening.